Welcome, everyone. I'm Matt Barthel. I'm an editor at Barron's, 30 years of financial journalist. I do the Barron's Financial Advisor rankings. I oversee those, and I talk to advisors all day long. The data is front and center for almost everything advisors are trying to deal with, trying to figure out how to make better use of it, how to not be overwhelmed with it. We have two great guests here to talk our way through it. Oleg and Judd are specialists in creating frameworks for data integration and how to make better use of your data. So welcome, gentlemen. Why don't we start off? Can you just tell us who you are, what your companies are doing, and we can launch into it. Judd, why don't we start with you?
Judd Mackerel, Mile Marker. We focus on helping financial services companies really connect the data that you are experiencing in your own retail experiences. Why can't you experience that with your advisory firm? Why can't you connect the pieces of data that you need to control and deliver solutions to your internal customers as well as your retail customers? So we specialize on providing a modern data stack and connectors to make that possible, as well as analytics and experiences that you're going to deliver to your clients.
Oleg?
Thank you. My company, Invent, we build a platform called Integrated Digital Ecosystem, helping firms to create kind of their future that is integrated across multiple different applications, starting with data, but also thinking about workflows, experiences, and other kind of a single pane of glass experience that you would build for various different folks within the firm as well as your clients. So that's kind of the framework that brings in all these applications together.
All right. I got the breeze hitting my microphone here, so if you see me doing this, that's what I'm trying to stop there. Oleg, we talked about structuring this around, where have we been, where are we now, and where are we going data-wise in this industry? Everything's going to be put in the context of, the consolidation, all the M&A activity, and the impressive growth that's happening around all the advisory shops. But can we start with you on where have we been? Where are we coming from in a data environment, and what does it mean for advisors?
Sure. So as most of you probably could still remember, back in the day where we all had our desktops and all the software was just installed on the desktop, you kind of had the custody of your data because it was all in your desktop, right? I'm not going back to, like, my grandpa used to be a programmer too. He was telling me that you can feed some kind of cards into a computer. I've never seen that, but I guess we're not going to go as far as that. But let's say in the last 25, 30 years, the technology has really evolved in terms of how we handle the data. So first was the move to the SaaS solutions, right? So we went from just installing something on the computer, having all of our systems on a single computer. Now we put a little server in the back room, and then multiple computers can connect to it, and that was kind of the next step of handling your data, consolidating in one space from multiple different devices. Client-server applications serviced up. We went to the web, which made it a little bit more easier for us to communicate with data and manage our various different applications. And then the next big step from just a pure web was the software as a service. That was a major shift, I think, that happened that kind of completely put us in a position where we sort of have to change the level of trust to where the data is, right? Before it was in our office, it was on our computer. Now the data is traveling to somebody else's data center, that's run by some third-party enterprise. And it was a tough shift, and it took a long time for us to get there because it was a level of kind of a trust that every single advisor, every single user needed to gain to really trust their data to a third-party provider that installs their application, keeps all their data in the cloud, right? Then came the cloud, right? The next step from SaaS solutions came the cloud, and it provided a lot of flexibility. So what's interesting that I see, kind of looking back at the history and now where we're coming back to the desktop, right? But on a different circle, if you on a different spiral, if you know what I mean. It's basically went from taking your data from your control, moving it over to the cloud, and now it's spread out across multiple different vendors. You don't really have a good handle on it. Oftentimes you can't even get that data. Okay, now you can create your own cloud for your own enterprise, and you can bring that data into your cloud, and you can regain that custody of that data while still using the third-party SaaS solutions that you are normally using in your daily lives, right? So that to me is a major shift that had happened up till kind of this day in terms of how we deal with data, how we custody the data, and how we now can use the data and different applications, and how we bring experiences together among all the different personas within our enterprise, and how we structure it in a way where we set ourselves for growth, that we have the custody of the data, that we have the essentially understanding of the data, and can leverage the insights from the data to make better business decisions.
Judd, anything to add there on where we've been, and how it relates to advisors and maybe and clients on the receiving end? What were the limitations maybe, and how are we trending towards places where it might be a better situation?
Yeah, I got my start in the industry in 2004 at Orion, and I think at that time it was still very on-prem server-based. Things were ultimately being run there, and then we would remote technology into like a web app of some sort. It was pretty basic. And then with the prominence and success of things like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, that shifted into the CRM really being kind of the central heartbeat for your organization, where you're throwing a lot of different workflows and things like that in there. I don't know if many of you find a lot of joy in paying your CRM bill. You guys love paying your CRM bill? Isn't it a lot higher than you thought it would be when you first signed a contract? It's a little bit cumbersome. We've tried to jam so many things inside of our CRM. It's really not necessarily reflective. The structure of the CRM is not reflective of your firm. Your firm is in a lot of ways conforming to the CRM. What the modern data stack, or what the cloud experience that we, both of our companies focus on delivering for people, it allows you the flexibility to do business on your own terms, which is why many of you have gone independent. You want to do business on your own terms. So you need a structure to allow you to do that, to effectively become a platform. So where we sit at MileMarker, we believe the future are firms becoming platforms, for lack of whatever term you want to find is the most trendy of those, but to become a platform in whatever way that you want to. If you serve surgeons, I want to be the best platform for surgeons, and I'm going to control my data to deliver that ideal client experience that knows the best action for them to take going forward. In whatever niche vertical, if your customers are other advisors, the same idea. What's special and unique about them? How do I uniquely deliver value to them in a way that's better and more informed, and using more modern technology and things like that today? So I guess that's how I'd augment.
Okay. So when I talk to advisors, and I talk to a lot of advisors who are engaged in tons of M&A, almost everybody's engaged in M&A right now, they feel overwhelmed. They know they have to do something with their data. They feel overwhelmed by sort of the possibilities. They feel like they ought to be doing more with it. And then at the same time, they don't even kind of know how to get started. So how do you start building a framework around attacking the issue?
Yeah, from my experience, we have to start at the base level of understanding yourself. What data do I have? What does it structurally look like? And how do I create a better framework for conformity going forward, so I can set the rules as a consolidator or somebody that's partnering with or buying other advisory firms to guide through the process of respecting what they have there historically, but putting them into a core data model that will help us have enterprise scale. By being able to do that, you can set the terms and the process for your onboarding. You can define success, and then you can ultimately deliver a more cohesive end experience a lot faster. But it takes doing that homework up front.
Okay. Is that something you help advisors do? Actually, lay out the plan, do all that?
Yeah, we go in and we'll work through a charter program that we deliver to firms to diagnose, plan that out, and help you structure delivery. Whether or not you continue to work with MileMarker, that's up to you. But we really seek to lay that plan out so you have clarity in mind, both for your internal customers as well as your external customers, what you're going to build. Because a lot of people, I've sat around this, and we talked to one firm, and that you come back a year later, and they're still in the same spot they were before.
Yeah.
And what's happening in data, if you aren't taking proactive steps to change what's happening, you're just going to be creating a lot more problems down the road. You have to start taking investments, even if it's philosophical investments right now.
Oleg, how about you about helping advisors diagnose the problems, right, and identify what they are, diagnose the opportunities, right?
Absolutely. I think what's important is to identify, I don't want to put all advisors in one kind of bucket, right? I think we need to be aware of like the firms themselves and what are they trying to achieve. That's where we start. We want to understand what is it that they're trying to do from a business perspective. Data, technology, it's all great stuff. But what is the ultimate business goal of that particular firm that they're trying to achieve, right? And we kind of work backwards from that. Because if their business goal, like, hey, we're an RIA, we've been in business for 25 years, we're kind of cruising, things are good, we're using maybe some out-of-the-box custodian technology, sure, we can tweak some things to make things better, but so far we're comfortable, that's where we are. I don't think we can help them. I don't think that type of firm is the type of firm that is looking for growth. I don't think that's the type of firm, the type of client that would benefit from our platform. We solely focused on, at Invent, on firms that really are looking for significant growth. And maybe they're a $100 million RIA today, right? But they're looking to become an industry leader, right? That's when you really start thinking about the future. That's when you start thinking about future-proofing your technology, right? And it starts, obviously, to looking at the data, looking at all the different workflows, but most importantly, it starts from your business. Your business needs how you're going to differentiate. With all this great tech, how you're going to provide a better value to your clients. How you provide a better experience for your advisors to work with you so it's easier for you to do it. And how can you optimize on your staff that you hire so as you grow, as you bring on more people, you're not just hiring more people to serve them, right? As you're bringing in more clients. And that takes a lot of combination kind of talking with business as well as the kind of technology leaders with the firms, or if it's the same person, that's great. But I would say that the most important thing is for the firms to figure out who they want to be when they grow up. And once they figure that out, we can certainly help those that really want to be the next leaders in the industry.
So an advisor comes to you and says, we're 100 million, we want to be 500 million, we're going to engage in a lot of M&A, we're concerned about the integration issues that we're going to confront as we're looking at potential merger partners. How do you advise somebody on that front? Where does that start in terms of, do you help them vet their potential M&A partners? Where should they start there? Judd, you want to talk about that? You're nodding.
I mean, I think you have to set some sort of rules and a framework to say, this is where I am today. Yeah. And we have had the success we've had as the acquirer thus far. So that allows me to kind of set the rules on who I would work with. Because, there's 35,000 RIAs today in the country, give or take. It's pretty easy to select down into who's going to ultimately fit into this framework. But when you go into the deal conversations by leading with data, at least in some conversations, and saying this is going to be the better way, but if you have suggestions here in this community, let's help always improve. Because once you start in your data work, you're always going to be finding new ways to optimize and make it more and more useful for not just understanding and analyzing, but also delivering workflows and hopefully speeding up and improving the customer experience.
Okay. I covered banking in the late 90s when all the big banks were merging together. There were a lot of community banks left out in the cold as all those mergers happened. And it became a sort of have and have-nots on the integration side of things. It was a matter of whether or not these mid-sized banks could figure out ways of getting their back ends together, and that became the real driver around everything. Do you think the same thing's happening, in this market right now, where if you don't have this data kind of lined up, you're going to be limiting yourself in your abilities, Oleg, to be able to approach M&A?
Absolutely. I can. I'm kind of reading some questions as they come up as well. Okay. So I'm going to try to answer the question with some of the.
I'll do that. I'm the traffic cop.
Okay. All right. But I think one important point is you think about data, and when you go out and buying a car, right? You're looking for the model, you're looking for the speed, you're looking for various different features, right? But you know that the engine is the essential part of running the car. right? So I think often when you have a business conversation about the data, you're trying to explain to somebody who wants to buy a car what's the best engine you need to set up for your car, because that's the most essential part. Of course it is, but they don't need to understand the engines or the carburetors, right? They need to understand how fast the car can go and deliver what they want to do to go from point A to point B, or provide the experience that they like when they're driving that car. I think that is the essential key point on how to position this to a business, right? Rather than saying, hey, we have integration problems. You're coming in with a box of integration problems. Can you just like fix this, and then thinking that this is going to solve my problem for the business? It's going to fix this integration problem. I absolutely agree with you. And maybe some great consulting firms out there that can do that for you, right? But you really need to think about where do you want to have a better experience in a car, or are you shopping for a better carburetor, right? That's kind of the place where you need to be in your head, like, what are you trying to do, right? And that's, from a data perspective, I think a lot of people focus on the data, how important the data is, and it is important. But missing the point of how it actually enables your business to strive. And maybe it's not today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's not really going to impact your business depending on the size of your business and what challenges you have. But as you think about the future, as you think about the growth, data becomes an essential part, and not just the data, but also how do you leverage experience that's built on top of that data, workflows that tie into multiple different systems that you have to deal with to provide unique value proposition to your customers and grow your business.
So I'm going to take one of these questions we have coming up here on this nice screen here. What are the biggest mistakes you see firms make, and how they manage and mine their data that are easiest to fix? Judd, easy to fix issues.
Well, I think it's really understanding philosophy of what data do we have and what are we doing with it, and what does mining mean for us? Are we asset managers ourselves, and we're looking to really understand and analyze our data? Do we need to use Snowflake to then connect to FactSet to be able to look at that data in a more robust real-time manner? It's really understanding that at the foundational level, like, who are we and what are we all about? Making that clear to all the core stakeholders in your organization, and then figuring out how do we press ahead from there. I guess that's what I would say.
What do you think, Oleg?
I mean, I think as we talk about specifics, I maybe want to lay down kind of the framework that I would recommend you guys consider as you think about your business and what you need to think about from a technology perspective, what tools are available. So if you want to write things down, I'm going to name a few things, name a few names. If you want to check those systems out or those capabilities, it's just great educational process to understand kind of how this whole thing came about with the data. So there are three major types of kind of systems that deal with data. You have enterprise integration platforms, again, for scale. Those are the platforms that help you move the data from system to system, connect systems together, et cetera. You have enterprise low-code application solutions. Those are the ones that kind of more geared towards the firm that maybe have a couple of developers, and they want to be able to kind of build some custom things to create maybe a client portal for your clients that are unique, because there's probably a gazillion different great client portals in wealth management industry. Every single provider that we probably see today has one, but you probably want something of your own, right? So these types of platforms allow you to do it. And then there's data management solutions for analytics. So three different flavors, and they're actually very different. The way you create your system for all these three different kind of areas are going to be different. For analytics, it's a different kind of a data structure and underlying technology that you need to use to create interactive dashboards, to provide insight information to every participant within your firm as well as your clients. But for something like an integration or creating a new experience, those are different tools. So I think what's important is look into the specific tools, and I'm happy to share some names of the tools for those specific areas that might help you kind of bring the whole picture together. So it's not just like, hey, I have a data problem, connect this thing and everything's just going to work together, right? It's a much more complex issue, especially as you grow.
So we got another question here, which is a really great question. It's a thing I hear from advisors all the time. Is there a great new tech platform that doesn't require an entire operations team? We love tech, but every new platform takes months and bodies to even start. This, I think, is the biggest. It's the inertia thing, right? Getting over that hump and knowing how you're going to start doing the things you know you need to do. What do you think, Judd?
This feels like one of the sponsors has planted this question, by the way. I mean, this feels like Altruist threw this into Slido, so props to you. But seriously, their platform's excellent. You know, it's a hard thing. Are you going to be your own unique identity and do things your own way? Well, you're going to have to start with the core blocking and tackling, a quality CRM, a quality portfolio accounting engine that's going to scale with you as you grow. So think about that. There's lots of great companies out here that you can take a look at and talk to. But you know, thinking in the basic terms there, or you should be maybe looking at partnering with an aggregator or a roll-up. I was formerly at Carson, and we had an excellent fully integrated technology platform that won't require you to have extra operational people. So that's a good example. Obviously, there's more like that. It's not, you know, those models aren't for everybody, but that's how I would respond to that question.
Do you see that on a regular basis, where that's the hump to get over, where you know you're trying to figure out how do I get started? That's what it feels like for a lot of the advisors that I talk to. They know they have to do things, but they don't even kind of know where to get started.
Well, it's a fundamentally existential question. I mean, do you want to build, buy, or partner? Who do you want to be when you grow up? Who do you want to be in your client size? And who do you want to attract to help you grow this business? Mm-hmm. Those are core questions that you really need to sit and spend real time on. And I know that it's really difficult to do because you have clients to take care of. Right. But those are things that will ultimately guide every step that you do in the world of data and integrating it to do whatever you want.
And it is a commitment. You know, technology is one of these horizontal things. We were talking about this before, that goes over the top of everything that you're doing. You want to be dealing with your clients. You know that you need this technological expertise that maybe doesn't reside there. Same way as when you grow, you need professional management of your firm, which may not be what you started out having, right? You started out as an advisor, you start growing, you're like, oh, I have an organization that I have to manage now. Maybe that's not my realm of expertise, but you have to commit yourself to acquiring that if you're going to get anywhere, right? It's very intentional. This connects to this question that we have right here. We have access to more information and data than we might have ever imagined. How do you help firms decide what questions to ask and what data matters? So I think it's Oleg, it's kind of trying to getting over this hump of identifying what you do. What do you think? How do you identify what data matters?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, I would say on both of the questions, you know, you start small. Right? You identify your sort of most important initial pain points, and then you focus on those and make a solution for those specific points, right? And there's a lot of different solutions and consulting firms out there in the industry to help you kind of narrow that down. For some companies, these problems may be solved by simply picking an all-in-one solution, which, to your point, will be a pretty easy onboarding experience. Hopefully, I don't know, but depending on which one, I suppose. But the all-in-one concept is one of the kind of solutions where, if you don't care about sort of specifics, unique value proposition that you provide within your firm, and you kind of good enough to take what's available. It's already integrated, it's already put together, doesn't require a lot of onboarding, right? That might fit some people, right? But anytime you start on a path of creating a unique value proposition, there are two paths that you can do it, right? One is you can say, well, I'm just going to hire somebody. I'm going to come up with great ideas. We're going to try some things, and we're going to, duct tape a few different solutions. We're going to create our best of breed, and maybe it's going to be good enough to serve our clients. Those solutions work, right? Up to a certain point. And maybe that's the first place to start. There's a number of different vendors out there, happy to share the names, that allow you to kind of get there, like Zapier or Airtable, or using systems like more mature systems that are available in a larger firms like MuleSoft and Salesforce solutions. You have your solutions that provide you, like Integramat and a few others that provide that data integration capability for you to kind of stitch things together and create your own sort of ultimate mousetrap, but they have significant limitations because the complexity of your business and when it grows. If you acquire a firm, they have a completely different set of stack. Now you're trying to work across your stack and trying to marry it to the other stack so that Frankenstein that you just built becomes even more uglier. Right? And unfortunately, that's the reality we live in today, right? That's what everybody does, right? And of course, you can have a great process to okay, let's figure out what systems you guys want to connect. We're gonna understand what kind of data we want to get out of the systems today, and then we're gonna build it for our firm to satisfy what we want to do today, right? But that doesn't set you up for the future, right? And you just spent a ton of money. Now you're in a position, okay, the business's needs have changed a year from now. Now you gotta, decide, do I just keep what I have, or I have to pay more money to invest in something new to just undo what that Frankenstein that we just paid a bunch of money for, a couple years ago. That's kind of the reality.
Is there a pause button involved in not Frankensteining something together? Like, how much of a of a lift is it, generally speaking, to build something that's going to prepare you for the future? I mean, how does it acknowledge the present and the future at the same time?
Well, I think this addresses some of the questions we have here, just around what's your path? Like, hey, I might be the average advisory firm, and I have Wealthbox or Redtail or something like it, and I'm trying to figure out what's next. Well, I think fundamentally you have to, you're building stuff. When you're going into data, you're going to start building things, even if it's passively through a third party. What are they building, and what is it intention to do? So the first thing that's important for you to do is to identify the data that you have, where it all resides. What is my data model for XYZ advisors today? And this isn't a huge deal. This is get a Google sheet, put it together, and say, this is where my client data resides, or whatever tool of choice that you would have, even a Miro map or something like that. But draw that out and at least give it a very good first draft, and then use that to collaborate with your other people in your team and your vendors to make sure you know where everything is going. So then you can have a presence of mind and clarity to say, if I make this tech decision over here, how does it impact the decisions over here? Right now, people are making buying decisions because you see something that's wonderful, and it's definitely a better mousetrap than the one you already purchased. So you're going to change it out. But what's happening is the downstream effect for your team is they've just inherited a giant mess to deal with. So thinking about that really intentionally is going to help make your organization more gelled, and hopefully, you're not spending as much on tech either.
Okay. So all of these questions the questions are great, by the way. Keep them coming if you want. They're really kind of meshing together, but it's how do you drive the organizational change required for your team to adopt new technology and undo old habits? So this is sort of a cultural issue, and you guys are tech guys fundamentally, but you gotta deal with the culture, right? And you have to deal with what exists rather than what you're going to try to accomplish. So how do you address the cultural stuff?
Some cool bikes over there, guys.
There's some culture going by right there.
Right. Wow, they're really going. So I would approach it. Obviously, that is a real challenge for most firms. Change is hard. Any kind of change is hard. It ain't broke. Why fixing it, right? So again, it starts with having a conversation with the stakeholders, and they might be in different parts of the organization. Again, depending on the size of the organization, we're talking, an RIA with 5 people. It's a bit easier, I think, a conversation to have with the business owner, and maybe kind of an IT-ish person who's there, who's responsible, kind of figure out how to stitch it all together for the business. As you kind of think about this on a larger scale for a larger RIA or a larger broker-dealer or an asset management business, this becomes infinitely more complicated because you have multiple different priorities, sometimes from different departments. Already things happening from an implementation perspective in various different parts of the company that actually take initiatives in a specific way to do certain things, right? So how do you match that with this whole new idea that we're just trying to pitch to the business, and how do you coordinate with all this other work that's already in play? It's already been kind of planned for, and still kind of create a cohesive solution that delivers value, right? Those are very important conversations, and also for larger firms, I'm sure I can add to that is IT has a tendency of a high ownership kind of structure. They really want to ensure that they own the experience. They ensure that whatever's getting built is not getting outsourced tomorrow, right? Which is understandable, right? So it's working with the IT leaders within the organization to in co-creation mode to realize that, look, leveraging other systems or other tools, doesn't mean it's undermining your technology vision or your technology decision. We're just bringing up a few more capabilities and systems that can kind of help you all grow and make it better, right? But I agree that that is a challenging conversation every time, right? Every time. But it's kind of a thing you have to overcome. You have to go through those motions because otherwise you're stuck in an infinite loop of just, let's just do how we did it before, and that really doesn't solve the problem. So it's up to the leadership to really have a strong leader, which usually is very helpful. Committee type of solutions are sometimes more challenging because you really have to kind of agree with everybody. So those usually tend to just take more time, but they get there, right? It just takes a lot of time to convince sort of everybody in the group. But if you have a strong leadership around technology and the business, and that they can collaborate, that's the key to me to success of actually moving this forward within your organization. Just finding those key people.
As I talked to a lot of advisors in both Wirehouse and RIAs during the pandemic, and they had tons of cultural issues and trying to move them. Everything from are we coming back into the office, how are we working together, all that stuff. The antidote seemed always to be, pulling back and having a cohesive business plan so you know where you're heading, and then you align the culture with that, right? And I think for data things, if you don't pull back and know what you're heading towards first, or what you're trying to accomplish, are we trying to improve the client experience primarily? Are we trying to set ourselves up for growth? Well, there's a question here. How do you plan for succession and for the next thing to come along? You have to kind of know what you're heading for before you go, and that addresses the cultural issues. I'm rambling, but what do you think, Judd? That's kind of the beginning of the solution.
I mean, you have to be delicate with any time where you're trying to implement change. You want to do it from the ground up, but you realize you have that company computer guy that you can't really tell anything to. I'm sorry if you're the company computer guy. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Or gal.
Or gal, yeah. I mean that in a very plural standpoint. But just being able to help bring everybody to the table to help them be part of the decision, but ultimately saying, guys, let's pretend it is the future. Whatever decision we're making, let's pretend it's the future. So why are we doing this stuff here? Why are we scanning documents? Why do we have these filing cabinets? Why are we not acting the same way we did in March of 2020? Let's think about this from a modern standpoint. Let's let that guide our perspective on the decisions we make every day going forward, because and the thing I think that gets lost a lot of times in the advisors that I've worked with is the ability to see what you're building as an asset for your company. A lot of times it's just an operational system. It just gets the job done. It makes sure that my clients have access, get billed, get statements. I'm compliant. But what I think you have the huge opportunity to right now, especially in this new age where the CRM is not going to be the center in the future that I see, you're going to need to be able to really properly manage data, manage systems, manage integrations, and effectively have a platform that runs your business as if you're your own software company without having to become, in many instances, a software company.
Can you talk a little bit more about that CRM not being the center of that?
I think that the amount of data that's about to come into cloud computing, by 2029, cloud computing will be a $1.7 trillion market. By the amount of things that are coming into this place, the CRM can't hold it. It can't keep up. You're going to need to be able to define data and deploy it on your own terms. And that's what hasn't happened to a large extent in the RIA, wealth management, financial services industry outside of the State Streets, BlackRocks, and et cetera. But all those firms are doing that. And that's going to come downstream and be more of a relevant part of our day-to-day here and the traditional RIA market.
Okay. So this question that we have up on the screen here is very specifically about succession planning, which is at crisis levels, in the industry as the most successful advisors who started things out are aging. They're trying to figure out what are their exit plans in the RIA space, if there are exit plans, and then in the wirehouse space, it's sort of like, what do I do? Who's next, right? And how do you facilitate that? What role does data play in this, Oleg, in the succession planning and making sure that you can create enduring firms? I guess it comes back to that strategic planning, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically how do you make your our organization scalable, right? If you're trying to change or take any person, doesn't have to be an owner of the firm, a key person that you have on your staff, right? That knows a lot about the business. What if something happens, God forbid, to that person? How does that impact your business, right? So it's really a risk conversation to the business itself. Succession is just one of those risks. But it doesn't have to be just the business owner. It's also any key employee that you have within the firm. Imagine, the risk you would take that happens. I remember I had my previous company for financial planning, it was Finance Logics. We had this one guy that was just a brilliant coder, and he coded a lot of the mathematical modeling that we did. And then he's like, I'm just done with this finance. I want to go work for Microsoft. I'm like, how can you leave this, right? This is, no matter how much money I throw in and all this stuff, he's like, I'm just not interested in this anymore, man. I'm sorry, you're a great guy. So he left. It created a significant risk for my business because he was, the person that knows everything about how we build the projections. So it took us quite some time to adapt to that and get to the system where, now with Invent, we have about 140 people within the company located in 6 different countries. Everybody works from home. Everybody is responsible for what they're doing. They kind of work as sort of consultants, if you will, because they're responsible and they have the ownership, right? And then any of those brilliant folks that we have, if anyone, me or anybody else within the company leaves, we have a framework, we have processes, we have technology that provides us a framework in which the business continues. So the continuation question is not about, in my opinion, how do you deal with succession? But again, how do you create your business structure so your business is scalable enough that can withstand the risk of losing any key individual within your business at any point of time, and it just continues without a hitch, right? To me, that's the solution.
It's the solution, yeah. Okay. So we're coming up on our time here. It's been great. Do both of you want to kind of give us do you have one sort of success story kind of thing that you might throw out, or one bit of insight, nuggety kind of thing that people could take away from, how do you get started? If you feel like you can't even get started, how do you get started? Jed, I ambushed you with this, but
no, it's good.
Yeah.
You get started by trying to find one simple win. What is one thing that's really important to my business that if I automated it, it would make my life and my business and my team members' business life improve. It'll be better. It'll be truly a better experience. What's that one thing? Let's circle that, and let's look at all the things around it, and let's look at a path to how do we get there. Let's go tackle it, and then let's start to build and deploy solutions so that you become more modern, more streamlined. You're doing business in a way that you feel a sense of scale personally and as a team. So that'd be my advice.
And you got to win, right?
You got to win, yeah.
Right.
Get an easy win.
Right. Well, what do you think? Where do you start?
I think that's a great point. To have a small win was a great way to start. But also, we're in the future proof, so I want to talk a little bit about the future, if you don't mind.
Please.
Historically, all these kind of problems were on kind of the advisors' heads, they have to solve it. The firm owner or the partners or the technologies, they have to figure it out how they solve all these complex technology problems by themselves. Why does it have to be that way? Why wouldn't, in the future, technology would just solve those problems for me? Why can't I, like, remember that movie, with Tom Cruise, about the future, right? The
Vanilla Sky.
Minority Report,
Minority
right?
Report, sorry.
In the Minority Report, if you guys, an old movie, but if you paid attention, there were some really cool things about the experience that he was doing as he was kind of bringing different things literally with his gestures and creating something out of nothing, out of all the different systems that he has with simply a hand gesture, right? Why can't the future be like that? Why can't applications in the future be already completely pre-integrated in everything that we do? And we can just grab the little piece here, a little there, and just like an artist, create a unique, Mona Lisa, as opposed to building a Frankenstein, right? So in my mind, that's where we're going. And as Abraham Lincoln said, the best way to predict the future is to create one. So I'm kind of coming back from that perspective. So that's what I see that is going to be the ultimate solution, so that each individual business doesn't try to figure this out, this really complex problem that is not their domain. Their domain is working with clients, making their lives better, delivering advice that is so needed by millions and millions of people in this country that don't have access to it. Yet the business owner figuring out, how do I plug in this data into here? Who do I need to hire? Like, that time should be spent talking to talking to their clients and really helping their financial lives to become better. That's kind of my vision.
Okay. All right, it's been a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.